Hello Fanatics, I'm Dylan Phillips, and let's talk about Season 5 of Netflix's Arrested Development. First, we'll give you our recap of the show, followed up by a review, and then we'll finish off with telling you if it's worth the watch. Created by Mitchell Hurwitz, Arrested Development follows the story of the dysfunctional Bluth family, who absolutely despise each other, and yet always find themselves drawn back together. So, recap time. The main story of Season 5 revolves around the events after Cinco de Cuatro and the mysterious disappearance of Bluth family frenemy Lucille Austero. With detectives searching for the Bluth company's biggest stakeholder, they turn to the namesakes of the company for answers and find it's a little more than difficult to get a straight answer out of them. Meanwhile, the family decides the best course of action is to have one of their own run for office in an attempt to finish the wall that they started. As the family members continue to avoid their problems by taking frequent trips across the border, everything comes to a head during a 2nd of July parade. So by far the best part of this season is the fact that they were able to get the majority of the cast back to shoot together in most of the scenes. Season 4's change in storytelling format relied heavily on the inability to shoot scenes with the entire cast, and it drastically changed the tone for this show. Without the witty banter between the 3 generations of Bluths, the narrative became stale quickly, which is a slight improvement seen in this season. Unfortunately, there are still a few key issues with this season that only make it marginally better than the less than well-received previous one. While most of the actors were able to share scenes together, a few were noticeably absent in this season. Tony Hale's production schedule for his other projects caused his storyline to separate him from the rest of the cast, but the biggest issue was with Portia de Rossi's appearance. After her recurring role on Scandal, she announced her retirement, but Mitchell Hurwitz was able to convince Rossi to reprise her role as Lindsay for a couple episodes. Unfortunately, it appears Rossi didn't make it to set, as many of her scenes are painfully green-screened, with her only shots involving other characters showing Lindsay draped in a bedsheet to hide her face. This obvious disappearance of Lindsay in the narrative is further complicated by the storylines of the season. One of the main storylines of this season is when Lindsay decides to run for office in place of Herbert Love, and in fact many of the ads for the season show this storyline as one of the more prominent ones that we should expect. And yet Lindsay abruptly disappears and this storyline just doesn't finish, and it's just one of the few storylines that comes up a little short. In fact, this season was promoted as a comedic take on a whodunit mystery surrounding the disappearance of Lucille Austero. While those events do play a role in the overall narrative, it never really feels like a murder mystery other than the occasional awkward interaction between Michael and the police or Buster's situation. It's weird considering the showrunners called it the focal point of the season, so hopefully it takes center stage in the back half. The only other part of this season that's both a blessing and a curse is the narration. Ron Howard's tranquil voice has been a staple in this series since day one. He's not only the voice of the Bluth family, but an executive producer and even has a recurring role as himself. However, while his commentary on the absurd antics that surround the Bluth family is a big part of the comedy style of this show, this season relies a little too much on the heavy exposition of his narration, which downplays the golden rule of show, don't tell. Regardless, the narration continues to be a very entertaining and unique aspect of this show that proves it still has its ridiculous charm. So, with the thoughts heard, here's our final word. This season of Arrested Development is a return to form by the showrunners to its traditional and unique form of storytelling. The narrative focuses on the family as the ensemble is able to interact more frequently, bringing back the quirky charisma and dynamic at the heart of this show. However, the lack of a time jump forces the first few episodes to tie up dull, incohesive storylines, and the central question that should have been at the center of this season is overshadowed by less interesting stories that fail to hit their comedic or emotional marks. From its trend-setting story elements, absurd scenarios, and even more absurd characters, this season may not be as good as its golden years, but it's certainly on the right path to getting there, so I'm gonna say it's worth the watch. And that's our recap and review of Season 5 of Arrested Development. If you've seen it, what did you think, and was it worth the watch? Let us know in the comments below. I'm Dylan Phillips, and thanks for watching. If you like this video and you want to see more, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Check out our latest Fanatic 5 video, where we discuss the top Donald Glover roles. Don't forget to follow us on our social media, and until next time, Fanatics, keep it real.